sent Mr. Richmond a copy of a 2-page unclassified memo and asked him to get the substance of it out to the media.
You call him a good friend and a professor, but you didn't reveal that you had hired him as a special government employee for the FBI to work on special projects. Why?
Because it wasn't relevant. He was an FBI special government employee until February of 2017.
Did you have other special? Did you leak other things through Mr. Richmond?
Yeah. I'm smiling, Brett. I don't consider what I did with Mr. Richmond a leak. I told him about an unclassified conversation with the president.
James Comey, in a special report last night, continuing to claim he did not leak classified information in order to get a special counsel. This as Republican-led House Intelligence Committee. Today, they entered their probe of the 2016 election, saying there's no evidence the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians. The Democrats oppose that finding. President Trump responding to it, tweeting, quote, "No evidence that the Trump campaign colluded, coordinated, or conspired with Russia. Clinton campaign paid for opposition research obtained from Russia." Wow, a total witch hunt. It must end now. Let's bring in Karl Rove. First to James Comey. Is James Comey ruining his reputation and his credibility with this book tour?
Well, certainly not doing himself any good when he's asked tough questions, as Brett Baer asked him. I mean, that is jaw-dropping. I didn't leak, he said. I gave a confidential readout on a meeting with the President of the United States to a friend who then leaked it on his behalf. So disingenuous at best. But the whole interview was that way. I mean, he doesn't know whether or not the Steele dossier was paid for by the Democrats. Well, the Democrats have admitted they paid for it. So why is he saying that he doesn't? So that he looks like he's somehow not connected with the politics of it? It actually makes him look like he's trying to hide something. He ought to acknowledge, yes, it was paid for by the Democrats. Maybe he didn't know it at the time. Maybe he didn't care to know it at the time. But it's just ridiculous for him to now say, I don't even know today.
By the way, with those leaks, it's against government rules to leak both unclassified or classified. I mean, he leaked. To your point about Comey claiming, that he didn't know about the Democrats funding the anti-Trump Steele dossier. Karl, did you notice that he claimed with total certainty that Republicans funded that anti-Trump file, but then he claimed ignorance that he didn't know that. We're going to get to the soundbite. He didn't know that the dossier, he said, was funded by the Clinton campaign and the DNC. Let's watch this.
My understanding was the activity was begun, that Steele was hired to look into, was first funded by Republicans, then picked up, the important thing was picked up by Democrats opposed to Donald Trump.
You still to this day don't know that it was funded by the DNC or
I've read that in the media, but I don't know for a fact and didn't know while I was at the FBI which exact opponent of the president's funded that.
In this sense, not credible at all, because he knew about the file in 2016. He was the director of the most powerful law enforcement operation on the planet, and he didn't know the funding of that dossier, that they got a FISA warrant to spy in a political campaign?
Yeah, let's be clear about this. A Republican super PAC hired Fusion GPS to do traditional opposition research on Donald Trump. That ended like in May of 2016. It was after that point that the DNC, through a law firm, hired Fusion GPS and through them Steele to do the dossier on Trump. And that was using his sources in Moscow. So that is a matter of public record. Everybody has acknowledged that. And for him to say, I don't know, there are two things that pop up to me on this. Why didn't he know if he says he didn't know? Because that was his job to find out. Wouldn't you want, if you're going to rely upon this dossier, wouldn't you want to know where it came from and who paid for it? And second of all, this gets to the heart of the matter for me. Hillary Clinton, during all of this, said this was approved. The idea of having my own email server was approved. Well, the FBI apparently never asked her, who approved it for you? What lawyer at the State Department did you say you got approval from in order to set up your own server? And it strikes me that's a pretty important question going to the intent. Did she intend to hide these things from people, or did she not?
That's
if
a good
she went and
point.
got legal support, if she got a lawyer to say, well, this is okay with us here at the State Department, that's one thing. But he never asked who approved. Who did you get approval for this from?
Karl, to your point, James Comey was adamant that there was not the need, there was no need for a special counsel on the Hillary Clinton server. But boy, he wrote memos to then leak to get special counsel Mueller appointed. That professor that the FBI hired as that unpaid special government worker? He's Professor Daniel Richmond. Okay.
He's not unpaid. He's paid.
Okay.
He is paid.
He's paid.
He
Got
just
it.
operates in a different way than a civil service
Watch what
employee.
Comey reveals, that he was working for the government at the time Comey wrote his memos about the Trump meetings. He was then going to leak to him to get Mueller appointed. I mean, Bret Baier asked him, why didn't you disclose that that guy worked for the government? Comey said it was not relevant. What's your reaction to that statement?
Well, Comey uses this all the time. He uses the excuse of, I don't think it was relevant. He goes and tells Trump, we've got this file full of really ugly things about you. And he's asked, well, did you tell him where it came from? He says, no, I didn't think it was relevant. That he didn't need to know it came from the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign. Well, transparency is important, and this guy plays games with transparency because he thinks he is so sanctimonious, he thinks he's the only honest guy in the room.
You know, Karl, I mean, the professor, if he's a paid government worker, to your point, he leaked too, right? So couldn't he be charged?
Absolutely. He's got some exposure on this issue. I'm sure the Inspector General's looking into that, and Comey again hid the fact that this is. He said, I gave it to a friend. Well, it turned out he put his friend on the payroll as a special government employee for 180 days. He could receive payment from the federal government in return for doing special projects for Comey. And why was he originally hired, and what work did he do besides leaking on behalf of Director Comey?
Is Comey in trouble here with the Inspector General for the Justice Department? Because that watchdog is looking into the Clinton email server probe.
Well, remember, Comey says, I never leaked classified material. And then in the Bret Baier interview, I believe it was, he said, well, you know, the FBI later looked at the memos and decided that there was sensitive diplomatic information in there, and 2 of the memos, we returned them to the FBI. Well, again, he wrote those memos. He unilaterally decided to share them with his friend, the professor, and to tell his friend, the professor, to share that information with the media. And 2 of those memos, which were written when he was a government employee, contained sensitive enough information that the FBI said, we want them back, and you shouldn't have given those to anybody in the first place.
It's astounding.
So, yeah, I think he's got some exposure here.
It's astounding. Karl Rove, we love having you on the story. Please come back soon. We love having you on the show.
You bet. Thanks.